Hey everyone, it's Kong again with another episode of Should You Summon. As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. This week, we've got a new Meteor Strike Destiny banner featuring Vincent, Epsilon, and Lostham. As a Destiny banner, the first SSR you pull is guaranteed to be one of these three fellas you don't already have. After you pop that first SSR, or if you already have all three of these heroes, you'll have the standard 20% off banner rate. First up, we've got Vincent. Vincent is a physical AoE rush unit. When he dies, he hits enemies within 3 blocks with an AoE explosion. His 3-cost skill pulls him towards a target, does an AoE burst when he gets there, and brings him back to life with 50% HP if he dies. He's a member of Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal. For bonds, he doesn't roadblock anyone else's bonds, but he does need Elucia for his defensive bond and Kruger for his attack bond. For content, he's not a PvE specialist, but you will see him show up in some AoE rush teams in Apex Arena. He can engage quickly, and then he's annoying to get rid of because he does damage multiple times when he dies. He's also one of the top OP units for the occasional Magic Tower auto chess event. Next up we have Epsilon. Epsilon is an assassin. His talent lets his melee troops attack at range, and gives him +2 mobility and skill range as long as he has an active faction buff effect. His 3-cost skill passively lets him stack up to +20% attack. When it's used actively, it's a guard-ignoring attack with +30% crit rate. He also has a 1C passive that makes him untargetable if he's away from allies, hasn't dealt damage this turn, and is at full health. His unique weapon makes him ignore class effects, which means he can be safely run in his demon class. It also dispels a debuff, heals him by 30%, and gives him 80% damage reduction whenever a unit dies. He's a member of Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Yeles Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. Conveniently for the guy who needs a faction buff for his talent to work, he can bring his own. His Meteor Strike buff increases your target's chance of taking a critical hit, and their critical hit damage taken by 12%. For bonds, he unlocks the defensive bonds for Alpha and the Transcender, and for his own bonds, he needs Gizaroth for his defensive bond and Omega for his attack bond. His use in PvE is probably limited to stuff like Forbidden Battleground, Covenants, or Ragnarok, the kind of content where you'll want multiple teams or faction-based teams, since he can buff his fellow Meteor assassins and also hide. This won't come as a great surprise, but Epsilon is primarily a PvP threat. He's solid as a demon without class disadvantage, has a couple of guard ignores and a faction buff, and decent threat range helped by the fact that his hide skill lets him position more aggressively. It looks like he's just starting to fall off the top tier in China thanks to lots of more powerful units coming along to compete for limited box slots. That doesn't mean he's not good in PvP anymore, it just means you actually have to think about whether to include him now. Finally, for the first time since his original raid-up launch, we have Lostham. Lostham is a beefy physical DPS. He can move 2 spaces after attacking, and every couple turns he can retreat even further using his hookshot. He can target defensive terrain or another unit with his hook and pull himself over to it. His 3-cost skill passively increases his damage dealt and counterattack range if he ends his turn on defensive terrain. It's a single target attack that boosts his crit rate, stuns the target before battle if his skill stat is higher than theirs and they're not wearing an angel feather or they're otherwise immune somehow, and it heals him after battle. His unique 2-cost skill is a guard-ignoring attack that inflicts an undispellable mobility down debuff. This is fairly standard, but it is good to have in his kit since his 3C doesn't ignore guard. His unique 1-cost skill is another mobility booster, basically like the hookshot in his talent, except this one is before action. He's a member of Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, Origins of Light, buffed by Dehart, Jugler, and Freya, and Strategic Masters, buffed by Ultimuller, Lanford, and Grenshiel. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bond for Adankelmo. For his own bonds, he needs Ashmar for his defensive bond and Ironblood Commander for his attack bond. His PvE functionality is going to be similar to Epsilon's, mostly good for faction-themed content. Any unit with a free hit and run can be valuable in run-of-the-mill PvE like Story, Time Rift, and so on, so if you do pull him on a newish account, you could try to run him as a kind of Origins of Light version of Leon, buffed by Freya, I guess? Obviously though, where he truly shines is PvP, where range is king. Being able to make unpredictable approaches and cause devastation, either by assassinating a unit or by stunning someone, is super valuable to pretty much any team. And by doing so, you're not necessarily sacrificing him in a trade, thanks to his ability to get away afterwards. This is part of what makes him equally good in turtley tank teams as well as rush or trade teams. Okay, let's move along to the notes for Noobs. And I'm sorry once again PvE players and new accounts, this is another heavily PvP focused banner. It's not that I'm only looking at PvP functionality, it's just that these guys are pretty much specifically designed to be PvP units. No doubt someone will leave a comment to the effect of, so-and-so is excellent in Timeless Trials climbs, and yes, it's probably true, but everyone is. If you summon these guys and build them and bond them and use them, they'll be fine. When I say a unit is PvP focused or designed for PvP, it doesn't mean they're useless in PvE. As long as you have a competently designed team with the units that you need to survive, like a tank or a healer or a faction buffer, you can pretty much run anyone. Just have fun with your video game. Overall, Vincent is skippable unless you're dead set on AoE rush, Epsilon is still good, although he's starting to feel the heat from shiny new units, and Lostham still has lots of life left in him and should be in most Apex boxes for the next couple seasons. Finally, just my usual reminder about upcoming banners. This is kind of a messy month because Zlong decided to add another week to the update, and we don't know when it'll happen or what it will feature, so I'll just mention the next couple major updates. The next one at the end of the month features Leo Beck and Theon, and they didn't make much of a ripple in the Chinese meta, so they actually represent a very rare break from summoning. In the meantime, take advantage and let your hard-earned vouchers and crystals heal back up, because the next several updates after them will be slamming the gas once again. March's update features Polyol and Lugner, with Polyol being a must-summon PvP staple, and Lugner actually being a kind of interesting healing thing. April's update features Grenshiel, the new Strategic Masters faction buffer, who also appears in plenty of Apex boxes. The month after that is the next Trails crossover with a couple of Kuro no Kaseki characters, and those banners all lead to a crescendo with the launch of the Awakener, the OP true form of Ed Ankelmo. She looks like she's going to be another meta-defining unit, and she's on a Watham-style one-unit limited raid-up banner. I'll have a bit more information about her in a special issue of the Langrisser Lookout, which is coming soon, probably this week. Anyway, that's it for this episode, so let us know in the Tone Discord or in the comments here whether you're planning on summoning or saving. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly, so shout out to Levitt, Derek, Kate Soon, Jared Portela, Jerome Meyer, and Harambe. If you're interested in joining these illustrious ranks, click that tiny little join button there and see how you can support me directly. It really does help.